The next day, I left work early and drove straight to the I never thought I'd be the kind of man to be blindsided by betrayal. For 10 years, I believed in my marriage. I believed in my wife, Sarah. She was my best friend, my partner, my home. But in a matter of weeks, everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust shattered into pieces. It all started the night Sarah sat me down, her hands trembling, eyes filled with unshed tears. I remember the way her lip quivered as she whispered the words that would tear my world apart. I don't think we should be together anymore. I felt the air leave my lungs. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. What? My voice barely came out, a hoarse whisper. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I love you, I really do, she continued. But I can't do this anymore. My sister needs me. She's sick, and I need to be there for her fully. Her sister, Emily, the woman who had been like a shadow in our marriage for years. Always needy, always in some kind of crisis. And now? Terminally ill. I swallowed hard. Sarah, are you saying you want a divorce? Tears rolled down her face. I don't know yet, but I need space. I need to move in with Emily. She's all alone, and she doesn't have much time left. I should have fought harder. I should have questioned it. But how do you argue with death? So, I let her go. And that's when everything started unraveling. For 10 years, Sarah and I built a life together, one that I thought was unshakable. We weren't just husband and wife, we were partners in every sense of the word. We had met in college, in one of those classic girl spills coffee, guy tries to help, both laugh moments. Cliché, maybe, but it was ours. Sarah was the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. She had this effortless charm, a kindness that drew people in. I was quieter, more reserved, but she pulled me out of my shell, made me feel seen. We had the kind of marriage that made others envious, at least. That's what I thought. We traveled, laughed over inside jokes, and supported each other through every hardship. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, and we built our home on love rather than material things. And then there was Emily. Sarah's younger sister had always been part of our lives. She was the opposite of Sarah in every way: dramatic, impulsive, and constantly caught in some mess. A failed engagement, financial troubles, sudden disappearances only to resurface with new stories of heartbreak. I never disliked Emily, but I'd be lying if I said she didn't put a strain on our marriage. Sarah's protective instinct toward her sister was fierce. Every time Emily fell apart, Sarah was there to pick up the pieces, even when it meant putting our relationship second. She's family, Sarah would always say. She has no one else. And I believed her. So, when Emily was diagnosed with a terminal illness, Sarah's world crumbled. And so did ours. At first, I tried to be understanding. How could I not? A death sentence changes everything. Sarah spent more nights at Emily's apartment, more days worrying about doctor visits and treatments. I reassured her I'd hold down the fort, that I'd be here when she needed me. But then, slowly, it became less about Emily's illness and more about something else. Sarah grew distant. She stopped meeting my eyes when she spoke. She took longer to answer my texts, made excuses for why she couldn't come home. And then, that night, she told me she needed space. That was the moment I should have realized something wasn't right. But when someone tells you they're leaving to take care of their dying sister, you don't question it. You don't suspect betrayal. At least, not at first. The first few weeks without Sarah were unbearable. I went from sharing every moment of my day with her to empty silence. Our home felt hollow, like a shell of what it once was. Her absence echoed in the spaces she used to fill the empty chair at the dining table, the untouched side of our bed, the coffee cup that no longer sat next to mine in the mornings. I tried to be patient. I reminded myself that she was going through something unimaginable, watching her only sister waste away. I told myself that love meant sacrifice, and this was just a temporary storm we had to weather. But then things started feeling off. At first, it was the small things. Sarah barely called. When I reached out, our conversations were clipped, forced. Whenever I asked about Emily, Sarah dodged the details. "It's just been really hard," she'd say. "I'm exhausted." I didn't press. I wanted to trust her. But then, there were the missed calls, the unanswered messages. And then, the strangest thing, Emily's supposed illness didn't seem to exist. One evening, desperate for a sense of normalcy, I decided to surprise Sarah. I picked up dinner from her favorite Thai place and drove to Emily's apartment. I figured she could use a break, a moment of comfort. When I knocked on the door, I expected to see Sarah looking exhausted, maybe even teary-eyed. What I didn't expect was Emily, perfectly fine, standing in the doorway with a confused look on her face. She wasn't in a hospital bed. She wasn't hooked up to any medical equipment. She wasn't even pale or frail. In fact, she looked perfectly healthy. I swallowed hard. "Emily?" She frowned. "Ah, what are you doing here?" My voice caught in my throat. "Where's Sarah?" Her eyes flickered with something hesitation, maybe guilt. "She's not here." My stomach twisted. "She told me she was staying with you." Emily bit her lip. Yeah, she was. But she stepped out for a bit." I took a deep breath. Something wasn't right. "Emily, are you sick?" For a second, she looked panicked. But then she forced a smile. "Yeah, it's complicated." I stared at her, searching for any sign of sickness, anything to prove that I wasn't going crazy. But there was nothing. No weight loss, no fatigue, no frailty. I felt my pulse in my throat. My chest tightened. "She's lying." I didn't press further. Instead, I nodded slowly, handed her the bag of food, and turned to leave. I didn't even make it to the car before my mind started racing. If Emily isn't sick, then where the hell is Sarah? And why did she leave me? I drove home that night, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and something worse, betrayal. Emily wasn't sick. That much was obvious. But then why did Sarah leave? Why did she lie? My first instinct was to confront her immediately. Call her. Demand the truth. But a sickening thought crawled into my mind. What if she lies again? What if she spins another story? I needed proof. I spent the next few days watching Sarah's patterns. She was distant as usual, but I started noticing the little inconsistencies in her words. "Me, how's Emily today?" "Sarah? Not great. She's really weak. I don't think she's got much time left." Lies. I had seen Emily with my own eyes, looking perfectly fine. I clenched my jaw, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to type out, "Are you sure about that?" Because I saw her, and she looked perfectly healthy. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, "I miss you. I feel like I don't know what's going on anymore." She took hours to respond. "I miss you too. I just need to be here for her right now." It was vague. It was empty. It wasn't her. For the first time in my marriage, I didn't believe my wife. And that hurt more than anything. A few days later, I took a more direct approach. I called Emily. She hesitated before answering. "Hey, everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Cut the crap, Emily. You're not sick. I saw you. You looked fine." Silence. Then a nervous chuckle. What are you talking about?" "Don't," I snapped. "Just tell me the truth. Where is Sarah?" Her breath hitched. I could almost hear her weighing her options. Then, in the quietest voice, she muttered, "I think you should ask her." My stomach dropped. "Emily, I have to go." She hung up. And that's when I knew. I wasn't imagining things. Something was going on. Something worse than I had ever suspected. And I was going to find out what. I couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was happening behind my back. Sarah had lied. Emily had covered for her. And now, I was left piecing together a puzzle where half the pieces were missing. I needed to find her. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, My mind kept replaying every moment: Sarah's distant behavior, Emily's hesitation, the unanswered questions. Then a thought hit me. Sarah still had access to our shared bank account. My fingers moved quickly as I pulled up the online banking app. My heart pounded as I scrolled through transactions. Most of them were normal groceries, utility bills, small purchases. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A hotel charge. Not just once, twice, 3 times, all in the past 2 weeks. My hands shook as I clicked on the details. It wasn't some cheap roadside motel, it was a luxury hotel downtown, one we had stayed in before for anniversaries. I could barely breathe. Sarah hadn't been staying with Emily. She had been here. With someone else. I had to see it with my own eyes. Hotel. I had no plan, no strategy, just raw desperation. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't even sure what I was expecting to see, but I knew that if Sarah was here, I was about to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. Minutes turned into an hour. My nerves were frayed, my thoughts racing between confrontation and denial. Maybe this was all some misunderstanding. Maybe she was here for something innocent. But then I saw her, stepping out of the hotel lobby, laughing. And she wasn't alone. My breath caught in my throat as my worst fears took shape. She was with him, a man I had never seen before. Tall, confident, hand resting on the small of her back like it belonged there. And Sarah, my wife, leaned into him with a familiarity that made my stomach twist in knots. Then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife even deeper, they kissed. Right there, in broad daylight. Like I didn't exist. Like our 10 years together had meant nothing. I felt like I was suffocating. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. Sarah wasn't grieving her sister. She wasn't struggling with Emily's illness. She had left me to rekindle an old flame. And she had lied to my face about everything. My entire world had just crumbled in front of me. I sat in my car, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My chest was heaving, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Sarah, my wife, my best friend, the woman I had loved for a decade, was in the arms of another man. And she had lied about all of it. I could have walked away. I could have left, gone home, and pretended I never saw what I just saw. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to be the fool she discarded. I threw the car door open and strode across the street, my heart pounding in my ears. As I got closer, their laughter rang out soft, intimate, like they had no care in the world. I stepped right in front of them. Sarah's face drained of color the moment she saw me. Her mouth opened slightly, her eyes wide with shock. "Ethan?" she stammered. The man beside her frowned, looking between the two of us, confused. Who's this?" I turned to him, my voice eerily calm. "I'm her husband." His face shifted from confusion to realization. He took a step back. "Sarah? What the hell?" She reached for me, but I stepped away from her touch like it burned. "Ethan, please, I can explain." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Explain? Oh, I'd love to hear this one. Let me guess, we're comforting an old friend? Or maybe this is another sacrifice you had to make for your sister." Sarah swallowed hard, guilt flashing across her face. "I was going to tell you." I cut her off. "Were you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were perfectly happy keeping me in the dark while you played house with him." The man, whoever the hell he was, ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated. "Sarah, what is going on? You told me you were divorced." I snapped my gaze back to her. "Oh, is that what you told him?" My voice was sharp, laced with venom. "That you left your poor husband because you just couldn't take it anymore? That your sister was dying and you needed time to heal?" She flinched, tears welling up in her eyes. "Ethan, I shook my head. "No, you don't get to cry. You don't get to act like the victim when you're the one who did this." Her lover, because that's what he was, wasn't he? Stepped forward. "Listen, man, I had no idea she was lying." I turned to him, my jaw clenched. You're not my problem. Then I faced Sarah again, my voice raw. But you were my everything. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean for this to happen. I let out a hollow laugh. You didn't mean for it to happen? What, did you accidentally fall into his bed? She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. Ethan, I'm sorry. I reconnected with him a few months ago, and I got confused. I still love you, but I love him too. Something inside me shattered at those words. I had been fighting for our marriage, holding on to the hope that she just needed time, that she'd come back to me. But the truth was, she had never planned on coming back at all. I exhaled, my entire body trembling. You know what, Sarah? My voice was hoarse, empty. I don't care anymore. Her eyes snapped to mine, panic flashing across her face. No, please, Ethan, we can fix this. I took a step back, shaking my head. No, you broke this, and I'm done being your fool. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Sarah standing in the street, broken and exposed. And for the first time since she left, I felt free. I drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts. Just the sound of the road beneath my tires and the cold emptiness settling in my chest. He was over. Not in the way I had imagined, not in some grand, dramatic fight where I got the last word and walked away victorious. No. This wasn't a victory. This was a loss. 10 years. A decade of my life spent building something I thought was unshakable. And in the end, it collapsed like a house of cards. When I got home, I stood in the doorway, staring at the remnants of our life together. The framed wedding photo still sat on the shelf. The couch where we had spent countless nights curled up watching movies. The kitchen where she used to hum while making coffee in the mornings. Ghosts of a life that no longer existed. I walked over to the shelf and picked up the wedding photo. My fingers traced over Sarah's smile, the way she had looked at me that day like I was her world. Lies. The rage I had buried inside me finally erupted. I hurled the photo across the room, watching as the glass shattered into 100 tiny pieces, just like us. I didn't cry. I was done crying. Instead, I sat down and did something I never thought I'd do. I filed for divorce. No waiting. No second chances. Just the cold, legal finality of ending a marriage that had already been dead long before I knew it. Sarah called me the next day. I stared at my phone as it rang, her name flashing on the screen like a bad omen. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. And again. On the 5th call, I finally picked up. Ethan. Her voice was desperate, thick with tears. What do you want, Sarah? My tone was emotionless, drained. I need to see you. Please, just talk to me. I exhaled slowly, my fingers tightening around the phone. There's nothing left to say. Yes, there is, she pleaded. I messed up, okay? I know I did. But I love you. I don't want to lose you. I let out a bitter laugh. You lost me the second you decided I wasn't enough. She sobbed on the other end. Ethan, please, I'll do anything. I'll cut him off. I'll come home. We can fix this. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. There was a time when hearing her say that would have made my heart leap with hope, but not anymore. I had spent too long holding on to someone who had already let go of me. I finally understood that now. I don't want to fix this, Sarah, I said, my voice firm. I want to move on. Silence. Then, a shaky whisper. So that's it? That's it. I hung up, and just like that, it was over. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, moving boxes, and painful acceptance. People always talk about heartbreak like it's something you feel a sharp, gut-wrenching pain. But the truth is, heartbreak is also numbness. It's waking up and realizing you don't have a good morning text waiting. It's cooking dinner for one. It's reaching for someone in bed only to remember they aren't there anymore. But slowly, something changed. I started going to the gym again. I reconnected with old friends, the ones I had drifted away from when my life had revolved around Sarah. I threw myself into work, into hobbies I had neglected. And little by little, the weight of her betrayal started to fade. One evening, months later, I was sitting in a cafe, reading a book, when someone sat down across from me. Ethan? I looked upon Day. There she was. Not Sarah. Someone new. She smiled, a little unsure. I don't know if you remember me, but we met at a friend's wedding a few years ago. I did remember her. Vaguely. Back then I had been too in love with Sarah to notice anyone else. But now, I smiled back. Yeah, I remember. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something other than pain. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new.